Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and having a wonderful start to your day, and I hope everyone's been having a great week out there as we're about to head off into our weekend. There is a few things to discuss in this morning's video. The first thing we'll go over is today's weather, the latest outlooks, and then we'll break down the country section by section. A couple areas we'll zoom into that do have a higher risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity, even a risk of flash flooding. So we'll zoom in and get detail for those areas, and then we'll switch gears and talk about the weather to come over the next several days, this weekend into early to even the middle portion of next week, as the same weather feature will basically be influencing the weather across the southern tier and eastern sections of the lower 48, just an area of low pressure that will continue to bring slugs of moisture, and with it we'll have the threat of flash flooding. We'll have the risk of strong to severe thunderstorms each day, pretty much for the foreseeable future into next week across those areas of the country. So we'll speak on that, talk about what's driving it, and then we'll speak on a storm system that could move across the western to central portions of the country for next week that eventually could bring the chance for widespread strong to severe thunderstorm activity across the central U.S. as we get into the later portion of next week. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. If you see any movement in the background, Kylo, my black cat, is in here. He's normally not a cat that's in here with me. I normally either have Stormy or Rocket, but Kylo is a very chill cat, but he does not like being trapped in this room. And he'll move around. He doesn't understand why the door's closed to my right, but if I try to grab him, he will jolt under the bed because he knows, I don't know, you know how cats are. They're just kind of odd. It's like they want to get out of here, but they know you're trying to get them, so they'll intentionally will try to run from you. And I don't know if you just saw that, but that was him jumping down from my dresser. But anyways, enough about cats. Let's get rocking and rolling. We do have a slug of moisture moving into areas in the mid-Atlantic, the Northeast. We have some showers and storms. You even had some strong to severe storms this morning across areas of the Carolinas. These continue to head to the Carolina coastline. This is bringing some loud activity this morning across the eastern Carolinas. And we have this slug of rain that's impacting areas of the western deep south, light to moderate rain in some cases, maybe heavy rain. But the rest of the country is pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on. Now, as far as the threat of strong to severe thunderstorms, just a general risk across areas in the middle of the country. But if I zoom into this area, we do have a marginal risk in the dark green, level 1 out of 5. It's not comparable to yesterday's event where we had a very large slight risk. We had many reports of large hail, a couple tornado warnings, but it was really just a large hail kind of deal yesterday. But today, not going to be as crazy active, but we could have strong to severe thunderstorms. In fact, we will. We actually have a slight risk for the eastern Florida coastline and for the North Carolina coastline, including the Outer Banks, where we have a level 2 out of 5. Like I said, slight risk, a higher risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity. And there is a 2% risk of a tornado across the Gulf coastline and the eastern shores of Florida. And then the wind threat, we do have in the yellow a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And those areas right here and here, North Carolina and Florida. And then the hail threat will be there also, but not as much for Florida, more so for eastern North Carolina, Kitty Hawk, the Outer Banks down to, I think it's called Beaufort in North Carolina, according to my dad. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know it's called Beaufort here in South Carolina. But anyways, 15%, I should know that because it's in the Carolinas right in my backyard, but 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. The risk of flash flooding, not very high, but I will show you green area, 5% risk of flash flooding up here for the Northeast, and then for the Gulf states and areas of the Southeast, a 5% risk of flash flooding. Watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have flood watches still in effect for areas of southern New England and just in New England in general. We even have freeze warnings in the northern half of lower Michigan, some dense fog out there, just very moist air mass in place. We actually have some heat advisories across areas of California. It's getting pretty hot, heating up out there. But outside of that, nothing too crazy ongoing this morning. Now, let's start off by talking about the Southeast. I do want to show you this. We're getting closer to hurricane season. We'll start to see more stuff like this going forward. But we got to watch these blobs. I call them blobs, but these just areas of energy that can sneak into the Gulf and then have a chance to develop. This one is about a 99% chance it's not. But it looks impressive on satellite, as you can tell here in the Western Gulf. But this is just an area of lower pressure. I don't think the Gulf is quite warm enough yet, and it just too much shear. But in general, it is impressive to look at this and see this. And when you get deeper, say in late May, June, and onward, you got to watch these areas of lower pressure in the Gulf. They can try to get going, find some sort of low-level circulation, and sometimes become tropical. But this is not. But it is interesting to see this kind of stuff this time of the year. They can be sneaky, and here it is. Starting off this morning, there's sort of a lower pressure right here, 1,009, based off the HRRR model. Not always accurate, but it's bringing slugs of rain to southern areas of Louisiana. But just taking a broad look at everything, as you can tell, a lot of rain and storm activity along the southern Gulf states. Some widely scattered strong to severe thunderstorm activity possible all the way from Virginia to the eastern Carolinas. And then we'll get another round of strong to severe storms in the eastern sections of the Panhandle, Florida. The western areas, especially southwestern Florida, really need this rain. And unfortunately, right now, you're just not getting it. But we're getting into this evening, the overnight hours. You can quite literally see a bit of a spin with this. It's interesting. I'm telling you, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but lower pressure in the Gulf can do some funky things, especially as you get May onward. But we get into tomorrow morning, we're waking up to just widespread rain and storm activity across the southeast and Gulf states. Now, just a closer look at some of these areas: Mississippi, Alabama. First, time frame is up here, 11 a.m., midday. Most of your shower and storm activity closer to the Gulf coastline. How far north does it move? Eventually, you get into 3, 4 o'clock. Could have some strongness, maybe some strong to severe storms, but just in general, thunderstorm activity all the way to Meridian, Jackson, maybe all the way to Montgomery, Monroeville, Hattiesburg. By the time we get into this evening, some of this action starts to spread a little bit further north. So it gets to the middle portion of Mississippi, Alabama. Will it try to get up to Birmingham? I think it's possible, but we start to get into about midnight tonight. Some of this action will begin to get further north in Alabama, Mississippi, in the form of just some areas of heavy rain, some rumbles of thunder. It doesn't look like these storms are too intense, but we certainly watch out for them. And then we wake up tomorrow morning to just a soggy start across areas of the deep south. Nothing too crazy, but I would watch the further south you get in Alabama and Mississippi for more of a higher risk of severe storms. Now, Florida, we get to about midday, some shower activity in the Panhandle, nothing too crazy. And then we start to get about 4 p.m., a lot of storm activity in the Gulf, as you can tell. A lot of activity. But then we start to get these pop-up storms here in Florida. And then we start to get into about 7 p.m., more widespread strong and severe thunderstorm activity ongoing. But it's really central Florida to, once again, the eastern coastline of Florida. Not a whole lot back towards Sarasota, Tampa, and Fort Myers, these areas. Just not a whole lot. We need to rain in these areas, but unfortunately these storms will dance around in central Florida and sort of drift one way or the other, kind of sea breeze driven kind of setups here, which is a lot of times the case in Florida, especially when you get into the hot season. But certainly a lot of activity going to be ongoing, a loud night in areas of Florida if you're vacationing. Then we have to watch for some shower and storm activity tonight. It's getting closer to midnight in the Panhandle of Florida. And certainly by the time we get into tomorrow morning, man, check out these cells out in the Gulf here. I mean, the Northeast Gulf here, you're definitely getting some stronger cells, even some water spouts potentially off the Big Bend coastline, the Panhandle coastline here. But definitely some shower and storm activity you're waking up to tomorrow across the Panhandle of Florida. But I do want to mention here, there is drought conditions in Florida. I haven't showed you guys this in a while, but this was updated the 6th, so a couple days ago. Actually, it was updated yesterday. It was released yesterday. So, areas of Florida in extreme drought, a D3 drought. It only goes up one more category. So we need the rain down here. These areas in eastern Florida starting to get it. You're starting to make up, but you're in a several inch rainfall deficit down here. We definitely need it. And as far as how much of that rain could fall, I got my timestamps all messed up here. Over the next, between now and 8 p.m. tomorrow, a couple inches of rain could fall between all this storm and heavy rain activity in this area of Florida, sort of northeast and eastern areas of Florida, and a few inches of rain could fall in the Panhandle of Florida. But these areas that really need it near Tampa, the southwestern sections of the state, not quite as much. So, but moving forward, looking at Georgia, South Carolina today, all in all, start off around 2 p.m. We take it to about 6 p.m. Some storms are possible near Savannah, up to Charleston, the Myrtle Beach, even some pop-up activity possible anywhere in Georgia and South Carolina, just very isolated compared to yesterday. But if we get to 8 p.m., slug of rain could enter southwestern sections of Georgia. And then we got some stronger storm activity potentially here around Charleston, maybe Monk's Corner, Goose Creek, down to Beaufort, Hilton Head. Some strong to severe storms are possible this evening. And then we start to get to, say, the overnight hours, maybe just solid area of rainfall begins to surge from the south and north across areas of Georgia through the overnight hours. And then we're waking up tomorrow morning to maybe just some rain activity across Georgia and the low country of South Carolina. Then the last area we'll zoom into is North Carolina and Virginia. And I would just watch, come on, man, get a move on. We get to about midday, I would watch some storms up in Virginia. Man, this is moving slow. And then maybe some stronger to severe storms here in the eastern sections of North Carolina. So just be careful of these. These will still have the ingredients to hit severe limits. This is 6, 7, 8 o'clock. You see these storms dancing around the Outer Banks and extreme eastern North Carolina. Just be mindful of these. By the time we get into the late evening hours, I do think things will begin to relax. Now, talking about the Northeast, big slug of rain that we're dealing with this morning. This will continue. This is midday. This is getting into this afternoon. This is getting into this evening. It's not as kind of put together as it is right now into the morning hours, but still just scattered rain showers, a chilly rain. It'll definitely feel cooler out there. It's not going to feel like spring. But low pressure moving right overhead for southern New England as we have this upper trough in place, pivoting energy around. We're waking up tomorrow morning to a lot of rain, and we're going to continue to deal with this rain across southern and down east areas of Maine for tomorrow. And then finally, the system will move on out for your Sunday, and you'll have calmer conditions. But rainfall between now and 8 p.m. Saturday, a few inches of rain is possible in these areas. Stop the video if you need to. About an inch of rain in New York City, Boston, a little over an inch. And then we'll show you a little bit further north, the rest of New York. Big, sharp cutoff in rainfall in New York. And then we will show you the rest of the Northeast here in New England, really. A lot of rainfall in Vermont, New Hampshire over the next just 36 hours or so. A few inches of rain is possible in this red shaded color. And the purple, 1 to 2 inches of rain. So definitely a soaker, but we'll continue. It's been a soaker all week, at least on and off. Now, the south central U.S., we're just going to continue to deal with really rain and storm activity for Louisiana. And honestly, Louisiana is really the only state that's going to see any kind of high impact weather. And I wouldn't even call it high impact, but we could have some scattered downpours around the Dallas-Fort Worth area later on this afternoon that could drift southward behind this lower pressure as the flow is more so on the return side from north to south on this lower pressure. So, you'll get that flow from the north to the south. So we'll watch out for that. But, as we're getting into tomorrow morning, this lower pressure will continue just to be doing its thing, spinning around. But a closer look at Louisiana, take it to about midday, still dealing with a lot of shower and storm and heavy rain activity across the southeastern portions of the state. As we are getting into this afternoon, some storms could build all the way up to or back to Alexandria, maybe Monroe, maybe even Shreveport. And things will probably calm down later this evening. So if you're out and about on the town, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, wherever it may be, I think that it'll be a bit of a calmer evening for you guys. So moving forward and looking at the north central U.S., it's a quiet and beautiful day. I mean, there's nothing really to mention. Maybe some showers across Minnesota and Wisconsin, but they'll be very isolated. So sorry to not give you guys much attention. Hope you guys are doing well. But the western U.S., kind of the same thing, guys. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to mention. A little bit of some flow going over areas of the central Rockies in the form of some snow in the higher elevations and rain in the lower elevations, but not really anything to really talk much on. The Northeast will be dealing with that cooler rain today, 40s, 50s for highs, and just rain and cloud cover. Southeast, 70s and 80s. There'll be some sort of temperature battleground in the Mid-Atlantic. Just depends on what side of that you're on. Sort of the Mississippi Valley, 70s, a nice spring-like day, but it'll feel like more it'll feel more summer-like across areas of the north central U.S. It'll actually be warmer up here where Minnesota, Iowa, the Dakotas, and Nebraska meet, 80s, and just warm out west. I mean, no wonder why we have some heat advisories in areas of California, but you're definitely being influenced by a ridge of high pressure. So moving forward, I will say, there is a risk of severe weather for Florida, southern Georgia, and these areas. Level 1 out of 5 tornado risk. There is one here in the Panhandle and the Bend of Florida, and then just a risk of some gusty winds, small hail. But there's also a risk of some strong and severe thunderstorms across central and western Montana also. So we'll watch for that. And then the excessive rainfall outlook for this day, just marginal risk here, nothing too crazy. This is for tomorrow or Saturday. And then this is for day 3. This is for Sunday. That risk of severe weather shifts a little bit further east into the northern high plains. So eastern Montana and the western sections of North Dakota, very small section of South Dakota. Level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather, and along the Gulf coastline into the Bend and the west coast of Florida. Looks like you have a better chance to get some storm activity setting up going forward. But, there is a marginal risk starting to extend a little bit further north across the southeast. And I think as we get into Monday, this will actually extend a little bit further north. And then we'll go back to the excessive rainfall outlook and check it out. There is now a slight risk of flash flooding occurring within 25 miles in a given location. And areas of the southeast, as you can tell. This is for Sunday. Now we'll go to day 4. Check it out. There is a slight risk of flash flooding even into Monday. Okay, going all the way up to the Carolinas, all the way through areas of Georgia, all the way down to northern sections of Florida. And check it out, Tampa and a lot of these areas that have not seen a lot of rain. This is for Monday. And we'll even go into day 5 and just a marginal risk across areas of the upper southeast and the mid-Atlantic. And just what's the Euro is saying with this storm system. And all you're going to see is blobs of green, yellow, orange, and red. We're obviously not in range of short-range model guidance too far out ahead of us. So this is tomorrow morning. You see just rounds of shower and storm activity just getting a Saturday evening. This is getting into Sunday morning. Plume of moisture gets slung up into the Carolinas. And this is just all in response to this upper low just spinning around here, yanking up a lot of energy around it. So upper low's kind of right in here. We got just pieces of energy getting pulled out the Gulf. Just a lot of moisture getting slung basically south to north. And as we're getting to Sunday afternoon, still just rounds of energy, little short waves pivoting around this upper low. And then we start to get into Monday. Now this is when our severe weather threat could grow a little bit more, and our flash flooding threat, obviously there being a slight risk in place, grows. So this is Monday morning, waking up to a soaker down here in areas of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, all the way up into eastern Tennessee. And I think Monday could just be an active, rainy, stormy day across areas of the southeast. Look at this just slug of moisture getting further north. And then we're getting into Tuesday, could still be active up into areas of the mid-Atlantic. And just taking a larger look at this, we start to get into Tuesday. A lot of activity begins to move into the Ohio Valley, central areas of the Apps. And then we just have to watch whatever happens going forward. Could be an active day across areas of the mid-Atlantic, say Wednesday. But rainfall between now and, say, next Wednesday, several inches of rain across the southeast, 4 or 5 inches of rain across these areas. And in kind of the red regions, 2 to 3 inches of rain. But one thing to look at is, look down here in Florida. Not a whole lot, but a few inches of rain. That'll put a dent in the drought. It's not gonna knock it away or anything like that. But you can see the rainfall, how it climbs up the eastern seaboard as we're getting. And let's go on and take it 160. This is a week from today. So a few inches of rain is possible. It just looks like a rainy pattern. Don't look at these numbers, 2.5, 2.6, and just get hyper focused on this or anything like that. Just know that where you see the purples and the reds and the yellows is where a good bit of rain could fall over the next week or so across areas of the eastern U.S. Now, this is all driven off this area of lower pressure, and this is for, let's take it all the way into tomorrow afternoon. So this is lower pressure right into here, and this is also So this feature right here that I just did a check mark over, this will move on out. This is what's going to bring such a rainy first half of your weekend up into the northeast. Lower pressure, unsettled weather. Higher pressure, calmer conditions. So flow around this lower pressure is just like this. Okay? That's how flow goes around lower pressure in the northern hemisphere. We talk a lot on this during hurricane season. So what does that mean? Well, that means that your flow on this side is going like this. Your flow on this side is coming out like this. So if you're on the right side of this lower pressure, you're getting a slug of moist air, which means you're getting slugs and rounds of rain and storms moving from the south to the north. If it's moving from the south to the north on this side, then it's coming out the Gulf and moving into the southeastern states. So that means we're going to be, in the wheelhouse of rainy conditions. So pieces of energy kind of pivots around this also on both sides. And as they do, this enhances areas for rain and even strong to severe storms. So I want you to just kind of keep your eyes on this, and I'll mention time frames as we move forward on this lower pressure and how it just kind of stays in the same area. This is tomorrow afternoon. This is Sunday afternoon. Notice it doesn't move much. This is Monday afternoon. It's starting to move a little bit, getting further inland. This is Tuesday afternoon. It's still with us, May the 13th. This is Wednesday afternoon. Still there. It's weakening, but it's still there. And then we get into like next Thursday and Friday, and it finally gets on off the eastern seaboard. So this will continue to influence our weather and just bring rounds of showers and storms. And this is conditions like 35, 40,000 feet up in the air, 250, 200 millibars. Okay? So if you look at these little streamlines like this, they're kind of pointing in certain directions. They're like right here, they're pointing in the direction I just drew the arrow. And so the flow is going around this upper low like this. I just drew it on the 500 millibar chart. This is the 250 millibar chart. Shows the same thing. And you can tell the flow is coming right out the Gulf. A lot of divergence aloft. Okay, this is just going to squeeze out all the moisture in the atmosphere, sling it over the southeast. So that's what's driving the pattern. And that's why we're going to have some rainy times across the eastern U.S. Over the foreseeable future. And this is just for Sunday evening. So obviously this entire flow moves and pivots in response to the upper low moving and pivoting, if you will. So I will talk about this a little bit. This is for next Tuesday afternoon. There's another trough that's going to dig down to the western U.S. Now, you would look at this and say, oh, no, here comes a big severe weather event. If you've been watching for a while, taking in information as I give it to you guys. But as this starts to move into Wednesday afternoon, you stop it here, and there's a lot of flow in the purple, 60, 70 knots. Just look at the purple and say, hey, there's a lot of kinematic energy in the atmosphere, wind energy for just storm development. Okay, is this overlapping a moist environment? Well, if you look at dew points in the same time frame, the best kinematic flow is not overlapping a lot of moist air. It's just to the east of this. So I still think we're going to get some strong to severe thunderstorm activity Wednesday across the middle areas of the country, but how high end of the event will it be? Now, as we're getting into Thursday, the Storm Prediction Center mentions this Thursday into Friday time frame next week, how they might introduce some severe weather risk category corridors, if you will, maybe a 15% risk. And this is why we're getting into next Thursday evening, a lot of flow, westerly flow in the mid-levels of the atmosphere going over this area right here, sort of just west of the Mississippi. And we look at dew points in that same time frame. We get into Thursday evening. Now, all this, especially on the southern side, is overlapping dew points in the 60s and 70s. So now we're having true overlapping conditions that support severe weather. And it's the same thing for Friday. And this is just one run of the Euro. This is, say, Friday evening. And we look at dew points in this region. Big tight boundary. Dew points are in the 60s and 70s. A lot of moist air flow going right over sort of the mid-Mississippi, the southern Mississippi Valley. So I do think next Thursday and Friday needs to be watched for severe weather chances. That's all I got. You guys have a wonderful Friday. I'll talk to you again soon, and God bless.